Hello, welcome to Calls with Your Kinky Bestie. I'm Emma. I am a submissive and mentor for fellow kinksters. This podcast is all about insights into kinky life and dating, sharing my personal experience and stories, and help share mindset shifts too to get you into a confident space, more confident than you are now. So get ready. It all starts now. Hey besties, this episode is sponsored by Rejection. Just kidding, I don't actually have a sponsor, but we are going to be talking about rejection because, I don't know, this keeps coming up a lot, like the topic of it in my personal life, and as a neurodivergent person, I have ADHD, and a symptom of that for me is also RSD, which, if you've never heard of it before, it's rejection sensitivity dysphoria. It's basically like people with ADHD can feel emotions really a lot more intensely. So it is, a really intense reaction to rejection. Like some people even report that like it can feel like physically painful for them. Usually just like a really like sudden shift to like, oh my god, I've never made a sound like that on a podcast, so I don't know exactly how that's going to translate, but I was trying to do like a pained moan, like an emotional sound, because I personally, I haven't been, not to brag, but I've been in a loving, stable relationship for a while, and I've created a lovely work setting for myself, where I'm not experiencing a ton of rejection there either. So I haven't felt RSD in a minute. And to be honest with you, like, I remember whenever I was, in adolescence, like throughout middle school and high school a good bit, like rejection was really like amplified and felt like I really felt it. I'm not quite at that level anymore. Like things have stabilized a little bit as I've aged. I'm sure this is different for everybody, but for me, like that's what I've noticed at this stage in my life. So, but yeah, the topic keeps like coming up around me. So let's just talk about this because this is really like it's going to happen a lot. Especially because I know that I'm putting out a lot of ADHD content. So I hope I'm attracting some ADHD people who this information is relevant to, so we can just have a little bestie chat about it. It'll be good. So my first thought around this, because when you like look up RSD, some of the first things that come up are like, okay, RSD is like an intense sudden shift in emotions related to a real or perceived rejection. And when I think about it, when I think about how I have not experienced rejection lately, it's because I've shifted my brain to not perceive rejection everywhere I go. Like, I used to perceive rejection everywhere I went. And I get how that's easy to do in the dating scene, especially because when you're dating people, like, it's harder not to take it personally. It's harder to separate yourself from the situation because the situation that you're in is literally like dating someone. So obviously, like if you're facing rejection, like in a workplace, or like, just feeling, criticism for, God, I'm having a hard time coming up with examples outside of work, but like or like in school, like I guess just like anything outside of your personal dating life, it's a little easier to separate yourself from because like it's not about you, it's about like your application or something like that, which you knew could have been better anyways, just because ADHDers also tend to be super perfectionists who are like never 100% happy with what they output. And again, I'm sure that's not true for every ADHDer, but at least for some, it's true. So, and for me, it's definitely true. I'm very much perfectionism driven. It's, that's a whole other thing. Maybe that can be another episode. If you want it to be another episode, I do have links in every one of my podcast show notes of like where to record your questions to go on the show. So oh my gosh, that would just make my day if someone like submitted a question that we could I could respond to, and that, then everyone could learn from. It's, can be anonymous, obviously, just your voice would be heard. And if you don't want your voice to be played, you could always leave a little note, like, hey, can you just read this out loud yourself, because I want to be totally anonymous. And that would be cool too. Oh my gosh, sorry. It's so interesting because all my ADHD episodes, like, I tend to, and my not ADHD episodes, I tend to then go on other tangents. So, going back to the key being that you can experience this related to like actual, like real rejection and perceived rejection. And it's so fucking true, because the amount of times I've felt like it's felt like a real rejection over something that I've just totally perceived and made up in my head and make it out to be like even more real than a real rejection. Like, it happens all the time. Well, it used to happen all the time. So I guess like one thing I wanted to offer was, if you're able to, in the moment, if you're able to, I would really like, oh my God, please do this for your mental, like your well-being as a person, and the stress on your body of experiencing super painful rejection. Like, it's just not worth it. So if you're able to stop yourself in the moment and like really like take a step back and say like, oh my gosh, am I actually being rejected? Or is this just something that like I am making up? Please do that. Because like there are so many situations in dating, like the first ones that come to mind are like, okay, maybe someone like stands you up for a date, and yes, that is a really fucking shitty situation, but it's not the same as someone, telling you to your face, I don't want to be with you. Like, it's not the same. It's usually like they just have their own personal drama, they don't have their shit together enough to set a date on a calendar and show up to it. Like, it usually has nothing to do with you at all. And even if maybe it does have a little bit to do with you, like, this person's not actually there to tell you like, hey, it's your fault. Like, so you're not actually being, I know it feels like it, but if you just sprinkled in a little bit of, like, I want to say delusion, but like, it's not even delusion. I guess just like an awareness check of like, hey, am I actually being rejected, or am I just kind of like taking this personally? Like, if you can do that, you will save yourself a lot of hurt. I also don't mean to devalue when you are reacting to a perceived rejection, because those are so fucking real. So fucking real. Like, it's happened to me a lot where, something that isn't actually a rejection happens, and I take it way personally and feel all the same feelings, and those are so fucking real. And I'm just offering, if you can not feel that sometimes, like, see if you can give yourself that grace. See if you can create that space for you to be not in a constant state of like stress and anxiety and overwhelm, especially when you don't need to be. So a few different things that have helped me to I guess like recognize that blip between like reality and perception is when something happens, I always like to bring it back to like, okay, what is going on for them, and getting out of my head a little bit and just trying to like imagine how this could not be about me at all. Like, if someone stands you up for a date, like, okay, assuming that they're not in my head, which in my head I'm thinking like, oh my God, they hate me, they are disrespecting me so much, this is all super intentional, and so fucking rude, and I can't believe they disrespected my boundaries that they don't even know about yet, maybe, and things like that. Like, if I were to just pause that and, think about how this could be from another human's perspective, like, yeah, it's probably not intentional to stand someone up for a date. Like, personally, I have never stood someone up for a date. Like, I can't, and I don't imagine a lot of people do. If we assume that most people have good intentions, and are not here on this earth to like terrorize everyone around them, like, most people really are trying their best, and it probably is not like an intentional thing against you. Like, yeah, it's probably just that they fucked up their life a little bit. And yes, I mean, that also, of course, is going to affect you. And of course, it's not excusing their behavior, and at the same time of their, insensitivity or, their own drama affecting you in a certain way. Like, you don't have to let it affect you like the way that your brain wants it to affect you. Like, your brain wants to like perceive this as, sometimes your brain wants to perceive it as like the worst thing in the whole fucking world, and how could this happen to you, and like, oh, never again. Like, you don't have to go there if you don't want to. So see if you can stop yourself before going down the rabbit hole. Just take a look back. See, like, hey, do I have to experience the stress, or is this not really a rejection? That is like the first little thing I'd have to offer. Okay, we're gonna take a little break, and whenever we come back, we're gonna talk about, well, I don't know why I keep saying we. It is just me here. It's just me, Emma. Hi, hello. And whenever I come back, I'm gonna talk about other mindset shifts that can really help to balance like these types of emotions. So whenever you are going down the spiral a little bit, going down the rabbit hole, like some lovely affirmations and mindset shifts for you to like soothe yourself while we're there. So like now we just talked about like how to like avoid this RSD feeling if sometimes you don't have to go there, and then whenever I come back, we'll talk about how to deal with it whenever you are there and make it just a little bit more enjoyable. Not enjoyable, but oh my god, you know what I mean. I'll chat soon. Just a little break to share that if you are loving this podcast and my content, if I'm someone you could see yourself working with, but you're wanting more direct support for your specific situation, I do offer mentorship. It's personalized to you, private video or phone calls with me, so you can chat about your situation and figure out a solution that's going to work for you. You can visit my website. It is kinkybestie.com/mentorships to see what's available and to book in your spot on my calendar. It's kinky with a Y at the end and bestie with an IE at the end. The link will be in the show notes, so you can check it out there. Back to the show. Okay, hi, welcome back. Like I said, this next segment, I'm going to be talking about, I did it, I said I am going to be talking about whenever you are in the RSD state of mind, or just like really like experiencing a rejection, even if it's not, at the RSD level, that is totally cool. Like how to self-soothe a little bit, and just try to minimize like the impact that this has to have on your life. Because yes, rejections, it's always going to hurt and be painful. But like, okay, what are ways that we can, I guess, like put a little end cap so it doesn't have to hurt as long as it could, and it can just, also like creating habits and like behaviors for you to be able to, like, I guess, like get yourself out of this a little bit quicker, because yeah, it's really not a comfortable place to be. So if you don't have to be there, like, let's not. Okay, sorry. I was gonna go on another tangent, but I don't think I'm really qualified to speak on the tangent I want to start in, because I am not a medical professional. So instead, I'm just gonna now tell you like the ways that I do this. So the biggest thing is mindset work and like mindset shift kind of stuff. So when I'm like really feeling in a down, low space, like I try not to be the one to reject myself. And that's it. And let me explain. Okay. It took a long time to get there. But I used to, like, whenever I would experience rejection, I would start to like internalize it and like validate it in like a way of like putting myself down. And I used to be a person who would self-harm. Like whenever I would experience rejection, I'd go like, yeah, this is you fucking suck, and like keep that going, which is really just so painful to know that I'm not the only one who has done this, and that there are probably other people in the world doing this right now. which is just so like heartbreaking, because you do not have to be the one to reject yourself. When you think about it, like you have lived up until this lovely point through all of these things. Like no matter who rejected you, when, where, or why, like you are still with you. So I guess just making yourself more aware of that and more grounded to that as well. Like, okay, through all the rejection that I face in my life, I have been the one to accept me regardless. So what this can look like is lots of lovely affirmations whenever you do face rejection. So when I think about the last dating situation where I faced rejection, which again was a while ago, like probably like a year and a half ago now, since I've been with my partner. But I would tell myself affirmations like, okay, whenever I would feel super, like I was feeling it super hard too because of my lovely ADHD brain, I would think things like, oh, I love how I feel things so deeply. Not everyone can feel things as deeply as I do, and I just love that about myself. I love that, I feel emotions this way. It's really can be difficult to live with, but it is really like such a beautiful and special thing. Because, I also feel really sensitive to like really strong emotions too. Like those also hit me really hard, and that is so lovely. I would also, say things to myself like, I love how I continue to put myself out there, because I do always put myself out there. Like no matter how many times in my life I've been rejected, like, yeah, that can set me back a little bit. I can stumble, but I know that I'm always going to keep doing the thing. It might take me some time, but like I will keep doing it. And that's most likely true for you too. Even if you haven't put yourself out there since that rejection thing happened, like you have the opportunity to put yourself out there in the future. So just because you haven't done it yet doesn't mean that you won't, and you likely will, because you are a lovely, resilient human, and you can do hard things. You do them all the time, and you're just learning to accept yourself regardless of the rejection that you are facing, the rejection that you perceive to face that's also just as fucking painful, and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, so whenever I experienced rejection in a dating setting, those were the big two affirmations for me. Or like, okay, I love how I feel things so deeply, and I love how I continue to put myself out there. If you are facing rejection in a like outside of romantic setting, another affirmation that I used a lot, I think this is also going to be really helpful for creatives, because ADHDers tend to have a creative side too. We tend to find ourselves in those kinds of fields. So outside of all this lovely dating and kink work that I'm doing, I also am a designer. And I face rejection so much, like being in design school. Like there was very much like, if you've ever been in a setting like this, you know that it's very normal for like criticism to be a part of your like daily life. Like I remember for every single assignment you would do in school, they would literally call it a critique, where the entire class, and sometimes people who weren't even in your class, would all just kind of give their lovely feedback on your work. And a lot of times like it was a lot of constructive feedback all at once, in like a very like public space, which can be really challenging, especially if you have RSD and are very sensitive to rejection and criticism. But okay, so if you are in those types of settings where you face like you're feeling a lot of criticism not related to dating, another affirmation I use a lot is, I am not my work. Like regardless how much I put into my lovely designs and projects and things like that, like it's still not me. It's still just something that I've put on a page. It is not me. So when people are rejecting that, when people are feeling negatively about that, like it has nothing to do with me. It really doesn't, because I am not, that visualization on a screen, or that, piece of paper. Like it's not me. So I am not my work. can be hard to remember that when you've just put, hours, maybe even days, and all this stress and, consideration into what goes on that page, but still, like, you are not your work. So that is a really lovely affirmation. But also I recommend to just create your own affirmations and play with this a little bit and like really tap into this idea of self-compassion and what are ways that you can show yourself that you accept yourself always, no matter what. Because it's true. You do accept yourself always, no matter what. So figuring out ways that you can verbalize that and communicate that to yourself. And that might even be things like, I know it's easy whenever you're rejected to kind of like get in a slump and think it's okay to not treat yourself the way that you normally do. Like you just want to kind of hide away from the world and have your box mac and cheese or whatever it is. And just if you could take a look at those behaviors that you do after you're rejected, really think about, okay, is this how I want to be treating myself? Is this how I really deserve to be treated before this rejection happened? And if your staying from home behaviors are really like lovely, I guess self-soothing mechanisms, and that you feel really like comfortable and like are comforting to you, then yes, that is the way that you deserve to be treated, after you've been rejected in some way. Like it's really painful and it's okay to be gentle with yourself. But also I used to kind of punish myself a little bit when I was rejected. And withhold certain things from myself, and just, I didn't encourage you to make sure that you're not doing that. In whatever way that means for you, because it'll be different for everybody. So, okay, I'm sure that there could be many more episodes about this. This is such a big topic. I've only touched it in a few little ways here. So yeah, like I said, please, if you have thoughts about this or questions or just your personal experiences you want to share, I would absolutely love to have like a little, audio question to respond to. So feel free to do that. I might save them up for a while and respond to multiple at once. I don't really know how this is going to go. But yeah, please share your thoughts with me on this episode. I'd love to hear it. And of course, I'd always love a like and subscribe to the podcast or whatever that's like on your platform. And you can find me on Instagram too, by the way. I tend to share a little bit more behind the scenes stuff there. On Instagram, and it's just Kinky Bestie, KINKYBESTIE. You could find the links in all the show notes and the links for my website and all that kind of stuff there too. So, all right, that is it for the day. Thanks for tuning in. This was really kind of cozy, topic for me. So hope you can take away some value from it. All right, enjoy your day.
Thank you so much for joining me this episode. You can follow the podcast on the platform where you're listening to get updates with new episodes. You can follow me on social media at Kinky Bestie. I'm on Instagram. You can also check the show notes for any links or resources that I talked about in this episode, or just more ways to connect with me. And please share this with your kinky friends who could benefit from this type of content. There is also an option for each podcast episode to engage with Q&As or polls. So I'd love to hear from you and create future episodes around what you want to chime in with. So please check those out in the show notes too. And I look forward to hearing from you. Bye.